Everybody feels triggered recently. Well, I have the solution for you. How to accept the situation and move forward for Daygame. The 7 stages of grief. Why are you feeling so triggered lately? Depressed due to the binflation. It's insane. I'm going to reveal to you how to stop getting triggered so you can focus on Daygame again and not be an unteachable case. Hey, do you know that when you feel so depressed and triggered, it isn't only you? Everybody was feeling it lately, becoming unteachable cases. They were freezing up and getting offended, then stonewalling me for my students. Then afterwards, they got depressed. That's right. It's like a turtle that needs to get out of its shell to move forward. People weren't like this before. It is the Maslow chart of human needs. That's right. The 7 stages of grief. And I printed out for you guys so you guys can see it. That's right. 7 stages of grief. On the very bottom is what people are experiencing. So what will you learn today? Why did depressed snowflake cunts recently turn into stonewallers? That's right. Students actually stonewalling after they get triggered and narcissistic. When they stonewall your communications like a sociopath and getting offended and triggered. They're mostly Asians and mostly Indians, believe it or not. Number 2, you're going to learn, even I got triggered recently, but I learned how to turn this off completely for the feelings. Emotionally, I'm intact. Feelings, just a week ago, I got really triggered, and that's very rare. Normally, I don't care, but that's okay. That's gone now. So what is an unteachable case? And why is everyone acting like they're freezing up and getting triggered? That's what you'll learn as number 3. So I'm Johnny Lee. I'm the world's best Daygame coach who has 582 late post testimonials for Daygame. More Daygame late testimonials than every Daygame coach in the world combined. I also have a mental trauma cure program that gets rid of everyone's mental trauma with 100% success rate so far in 10 hours. Instead of 1 to 2 years and spending 18K like a lot of my students did for 2 years, not getting over their mental trauma. So what is accept the situation so you can move on with your life again? It is the last stage of the 7 stages of grief. So I printed this out for the 7 stages of grief over here so you guys can see it. This is the 7 stages of grief right over here. You always wonder why you're depressed. It didn't make any sense why you're depressed. But believe it or not, depression is right over here. You're like, what? That's right. So you're saying, John, that you've been going through all these stages and you got stuck right here? That's correct. So I'll explain the science behind how did all this happen, because I'm also on this chart, I'm going to show you the way out. One of these stages are going to untrigger you. If I'm going to tell you this, I'm going to tell you the solution. So stick around, watch the entire video. And even if you know the solution, watch the entire thing so you can really learn. So when you accept the situation, you don't have to go through the other 6 stages triggering you, getting you depressed, then bargaining. You just accept. What do you mean accept, John? That's right. You just accept. It is like trying to use a boat going upstream. Imagine the river is going against you, so you're not moving forward. You're feeling all these stages of emotions, all this shock, all this denial, all this anger, all this bargaining, all this depression, all this testing. You're going through all of this stuff like a river. You're really going uphill against all of this stuff, and you don't know why. It is a horrible feeling, and I bet you all feel the same way. Trigger, not making enough money, food cost, banks are shutting down, tech field, especially a lot of my students are engineers, tech field. People are just getting fired left and right. And you're wondering what the heck is going on with this world. Everything seems to be falling apart. So you're always in a state of shock. But that's the thing though. If you go to the stage of acceptance, the 7th stage, right over here at the very bottom, then the river stops moving and your boat finally goes forward. You're like, really? Yeah, dude. So I'm going to share with you 3 things that you're facing. When you accept the situation, you don't have to go through the other 6 stages triggering you. getting you depressed and bargaining. You just accept, and how you can finally stop getting excessively triggered by your high ego and low self esteem because you're not competent. No offense, but some of you guys are not that competent when it comes to budgeting. You're not that competent with high income skills. So it really hurts your ego a lot. So you losing your self esteem as you get more triggered. The Maslow chart of human needs aren't being met. Plus, now you have to deal with 7 stages of grief. So, what is this chart, this Maslow chart of human needs? So, Maslow chart of human needs. You guys have seen this chart before, haven't you? Self actualization, self esteem, love and belonging, safety, and physiological needs. So, you guys are stuck over here for a lot of the RSD victim guide. No offense for the zombies. No offense, but you guys get triggered because right now, as it says over here, for breathing, this is your human needs. Breathing, food, you're stuck food costs. You see that? That's why you get triggered. Water, sex, sleep, homeostasis, and excretion means taking a shit. Homeostasis means like temperature control. That means having enough heat. Just the basic necessities of life. You guys are feeling like you're not meeting your human needs. So that's why it starts to get triggered. And this is where the 7 stages of grief comes in. So how do you fix this? As I know what you're probably thinking, you were just depressed, right? No, dude, you're not just depressed. That's just the beginning of it. Okay. When I made a poll asking, why are you guys not reciprocating? And I was wondering, what is wrong with you? And then the poll, everyone voted on one thing. Everyone said they were depressed. That's right. But then again, I'm going to show you a great way you can learn to accept the situation so you can bypass the other 6 stages of grief. So you can finally move forward again. Get to the current of the water, the river, to stop so you can go faster and move forward without getting triggered. All right. So the first challenge for Daygame is a lot of my students start stonewalling. The big idea is that most of the sociopaths are stonewallers. Even if they are not stonewallers, they're sociopaths. So you think that, they think that you're boring and they don't even listen to your WhatsApp audio, skipping parts of it. So of the audio, when you try and give them advice on EV access, they have this sociopathic, no empathy, no remorse traits along with sadism. With the inflation, everything, they're more triggered, but they get triggered and they start stonewalling. Most of the stonewallers, or 99% of them, are either Asian, specifically Chinese, or they are Indian because they have the most narcissism of every single ethnicity. I've also noticed students have been stonewalling. They did it for years. Some people are naturally born stonewallers. I'm not joking. I actually show each other of the students. They're stonewalling. One black student in past did the same thing. They're all narcissists with a massive ego. The students were former Brokey students with 44 lays. They were surprised that they were all doing exactly the same thing. It's a coincidence that they're all doing it right now with the inflation. They should not all be stonewalling at the same time. So once a stonewaller, always a stonewaller when they are easily triggered. So looking back at it, so many students with these traits seems to be stonewalling for years. I just haven't realized it until now. So it's important that because one Indian guy got so fucking triggered. So imagine one of my Indian students have very low SMV, the lowest sexual market value. He actually told me he was 8 out of 10 in looks. He doesn't know why he was being rejected. He looks more like 2 out of 10, to be honest. He could not even fit an extra small shirt. And I was like, wait a minute. Extra small is the smallest size. He says he works out, so he's muscular. But if you can't fit extra small, how are you muscular? Several of my students cannot fit into extra small. It's not very attractive. If you guys can hit the bell icon, at the very least, you have a better chance of seeing the videos. If you try search up my name, you cannot find me on YouTube search, or it's harder to find me. I'm pushed way down. I banned all Indians living in India from training with me because they can't afford it. They start attacking me when the inflation or food prices started. They got triggered and start stonewalling and stuff like that. So it's not just one. It was like like more than half a dozen in a row. And I said, fuck that. This Indian guy was in denial and his tonality was always up talking. So whenever he sounded like this, right? He's, hey, how's it going? I was like doing this. At the very end of the sentence, it had a sigh. He had an upside down frown like this. He's saying he's not depressed. I said, you are delusional. He got angry. He stonewalled me. He got triggered. I said, dude, if your frown is like this, right? Excuse me. So when he tries to smile, it doesn't even clear the halfway point. Get like this. There's some people, if you're like this, you just take mental trauma cure. Is too depressed. But let's talk about this Indian guy. He was in denial, right? His tonality up talk. So in the beginning of the sentence, it'd be like, hey, how is it going? And I was like, sigh. Excuse me, I have a question. I was just going down this way. Whenever you sound like that, you turn women off. Every single sentence you speak, at the end of the sentence, when it goes downwards, she's going to be turned off. I'm not joking. As soon as you sigh, this is one of the biggest mistakes you can do. Up talking and sighing. Hey, how's it going? I was like going down this way. And I was like, that's right. He had the audacity to say he wasn't depressed with an upside down frown. Delusional. Listening to his tonality in practice. He says 8 out of 10 in looks. I told him that he was kicked out of elite access and he can move to inner circle, but he still stonewalled me. I told him actually he was actually 3 out of 10 in looks and also delusional. He refused to adapt. He stonewalls afterwards and he got triggered so hard. But here's the solution. Even if he got triggered like a bancho, he just will waste time with other coaches, even though the solution is right here. If he just stopped getting triggered and actually do it, he wasn't adapting. If he only accepted, the words accepted the situation, the delusions would stop. That was the solution, because when you guys are going through all these things on this chart, I printed out, you start with shock, and that's what everyone experienced. Everyone was in shock. Then you go to denial. All of you are in denial. So you're like, oh no, the situation is not so bad. The inflation is not so bad. Then you get to anger stage. Then you get to bargaining, get to depression. A lot of you are still stuck in the depression stage. That's why you're all like completely stuck. So you're wondering, why are you so depressed? So everyone were voting why we're not training with me, even though I'm posting nonstop late testimonials. Everybody voted one thing. It was all voting depressed. And I was like, oh, there's actually this chart. But if you accept it on the very bottom, testing's next. And if you accept the problem, not acknowledge, but accept the problem, if the Indian guy accepted the problem that he has low SMV and he needs to adapt, then he's able to make changes in his life. Go over it. So let's say, for example, he accepted he had low SMV and that he does not have a V-shaped body. He cannot even fit in extra small clothing. If he can accept the problem, then he can change it. But if he's not accepting it in his delusion, he's not going to make changes. Depression's over here. So at first you get triggered by the inflation, shocked, denial, anger, bargaining, and depression. You're stuck here. All of you. That's why so many people are depressed. You have to accept the situation that is fucked up. When you start accepting it, your boat no longer fights the current. If you try to bargain, you deal with all this anger, denial, shock, right? All this stuff. You're always trying to fight against the problem. When you finally accept the problem, you will disengage the handbrake. Then you can finally move forward. But that's the problem. You might move forward in one river, but every single situation, you have to redo this. I'm going to read a passage about stonewalling you can find on the internet. Stonewalling is when someone shuts you down from communicating. He just bails on your efforts at communications, refuses to take you seriously, refuses to engage in a discussion of your concerns. He may ignore or dismiss you, express fatigue with you and your concerns. He may listen without offering a thoughtful or respectful response, and then credit himself for having listened. Remember, he may depict you as a boring windbag who doesn't know how to stop talking, who always making or looking for trouble without recognizing or owning how your very instinct to talk and to pursue him until he gives you a meaningful response. If you do persist, he may complain to others that he is being harassed for no reason, pointing out that he is doing nothing to you. He may flat out tell you he's bored by and uninterested in the concerns you raise. His rebuff will make you feel cruel and leave you feeling especially helpless. He will also very likely be dripping with some form of passive aggressive. If it's not aggressive, contempt. Now, this stonewalling, and stonewalling is a nasty, hurtful thing to do to somebody. It leaves the stonewall party feeling as neglected as the person can feel. You don't have to be a sociopath to be a stonewaller. Plenty of non-sociopath stonewalls, but many sociopaths are stonewallers, and they act stonewalling in itself is the cold and callous attitude of a sociopath. By accepting the situation, you jump all the way to the end of acceptance so you don't have to go through the current, then you can move forward. You're still doing the actions, except you will not feel like a current going against your mind. Does this all make sense, guys? Keep accepting. Don't acknowledge. Accept. That's the only way out of depression. When you accept the situation as it is, you finally let go of all those emotions of trying to fight back. You can't win. Then you can finally win by leveling up. You got to be like a turtle. You have to get out of your shell to move forward. You can't just go back in the shell. Move forward just a little bit, like low function. Back in your shell, forward. Back in your shell, forward. If you keep doing that, you're going to be stuck. This is why I'm teaching every one of my students this. That's all I want to say for today.